There's more to the Shawshank Redemption than meets the eye. Behind its quiet walls lies a maze of untold truths you were never meant to discover, until now. Fact 1. Despite its current status as one of the greatest films of all time, The Shawshank Redemption was a commercial disappointment when it first hit theaters. Released in 1994, it barely earned $16 million during its initial run, less than half its production budget. Part of the problem was its ambiguous title, which confused audiences unfamiliar with Stephen King's Novella. It also faced stiff competition from other powerhouse films like Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump. Critics praised it, but viewers just didn't show up. It was only after the Oscars and heavy word of mouth that the film gained traction. TNT and cable reruns helped it reach a massive audience in the late 90s. Once it hit home video, rentals skyrocketed. The movie's enduring popularity grew steadily, turning it into a cult classic. It now consistently ranks among the top films on IMDb. Frank Darabont, the director, once said he wasn't surprised it failed initially. He blamed the marketing and the lack of star power. But he always believed in the story's emotional core. The film's slow burn over time has given it legendary status. Few films have recovered from such a rough start. Warner Brothers even admitted they were disappointed with the initial performance. Today, it's studied in film schools and loved by generations. Sometimes the slowest runners go the farthest, and Shawshank proved that true. Fact 2.
I'm a changed man, no longer a danger to society.
Most people associate Stephen King with horror, but The Shawshank Redemption isn't about monsters or supernatural forces. It's based on King's 1982 novella, Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. The story was part of a collection called Different Seasons, which also included The Body, later adapted into Stand By Me. King sold the film rights to Frank Darabont for just $5,000. That's a shockingly low price for what became a cinematic masterpiece. But King trusted Darabont, who had adapted his short story, The Woman in the Room. The $5,000 check was never cashed. Years later, King returned it in a frame with a note saying, "In case you ever need bail money, love, Steve." That story is now legendary among filmmakers. The novella is much shorter than the film. Darabont expanded several characters and created new scenes to flesh it out. Red, for example, is a white Irishman in the book. In the film, he's played by Morgan Freeman, and the line, "Maybe it's 'cause I'm Irish," was added as a tongue-in-cheek nod. King has called it one of his favorite film adaptations. The emotional depth in the movie goes far beyond the novella. It's a rare example where the movie may have surpassed the source material. King fans agree it's one of the best non-horror stories he ever wrote. Fact 3. The Ohio State Reformatory, where the film was shot, is very real and very eerie. Located in Mansfield, Ohio, the prison opened in 1896 and closed in 1990. That's just 4 years before Shawshank started filming. The crew used the prison's decaying interior to full effect. It created an authentic and grim atmosphere that a soundstage could never replicate. The facility had a dark history, including riots, inmate deaths, and harsh living conditions. After the movie, it became a tourist attraction. Ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts flocked to it regularly. Numerous visitors have claimed to experience strange voices, cold spots, and even ghost sightings. Some crew members reportedly refused to enter certain wings alone. Today it hosts ghost tours and even Halloween events. Several scenes in the movie were filmed in the real cell blocks and warden's office. The prison chapel, solitary confinement, and the infamous hole are all preserved. While parts of the prison were reconstructed for filming, much of what you see on screen is genuine. That gritty realism adds weight to the film's emotional punches. It's not just set dressing, it's a character in its own right. Walking the halls today feels like stepping into Shawshank itself. But don't go alone. Fact 4. In one brief but memorable moment, you'll see Morgan Freeman's real-life son on screen. His name is Alfonso Freeman, and he plays a prisoner shouting "fresh fish" at the new inmates. He's the one who yells that haunting chant that rattles the newcomers. Alfonso wasn't a professional actor at the time, but he wanted to be involved in his father's most high-profile role. The scene is iconic because it introduces the fear and cruelty within Shawshank's walls. Alfonso also helped with the background vocals for some of the prisoner jeers. The father-son connection was mostly unknown at the time. Morgan and Alfonso share a striking resemblance, which some eagle-eyed fans noticed. Alfonso later said he was proud to be part of the project. He even went on to appear in other films like C7N in the bucket list. Despite the small role, his appearance is a fun Easter egg. It adds a personal touch to a deeply emotional film. Freeman's calm narration anchors the movie, and having his son there, even briefly, makes that voice feel even more personal. Family plays a subtle theme in the film, and in this case, it's spilled into real life. Fact 5.
It will take a man about 600 years to tunnel under the wall with one of these.
Andy Dufresne's escape tool, the Rockhammer, is small, harmless-looking, and essential, but early versions of the prop look too much like a real weapon. The crew was concerned it could be seen as a dangerous object. Since it had to be smuggled into prison inside a Bible, its size was crucial. But it also needed to be believable enough to carve through stone over decades. The prop team went through several designs before settling on the final version. They used lightweight materials that mimicked metal. Some were rubber for safety during close-up scenes. In reality, a Rockhammer could do serious damage, so they took extra precautions on set. Tim Robbins had to rehearse holding and hiding it naturally. The scene where Red jokes, "You'd need it to be a Rockhammer," had to land perfectly. If it looked too threatening, the emotional tone of Andy's escape would change. The final hammer was only about 6 inches long. It was stored in a hollowed-out Bible, just like in King's Novella. Fans have since recreated the Bible hammer combo for collector's items. It's one of the most iconic movie props ever created. Without it, Shawshank would have been a very different film. Fact 6. That giant oak tree, the one where Andy leaves a message for Red after his escape, wasn't just part of the movie. It was a real tree, standing tall in a quiet field near Mansfield, Ohio. For years, fans of the Shawshank Redemption made pilgrimages to that spot just to see it. The tree had become a powerful symbol of hope and second chances. But in 2011, something unexpected happened. A powerful lightning storm hit the area, and the tree was struck. It split the trunk and damaged the limbs. The tree managed to survive the impact for a while. But 5 years later, in 2016, strong winds finally brought it crashing down. Fans around the world were heartbroken. News of the fallen oak spread fast, especially on social media and fan forums. For many, it felt like losing a character from the film. Thankfully, pieces of the tree were salvaged. Locals turned the wood into keepsakes, pens, keychains, and even furniture. It was a way of preserving the memory. A historical marker now stands where the tree once lived. It explains the tree's role in film history. Interestingly, the tree wasn't even in Stephen King's original story. It was added just for the movie. And yet, it became one of the most emotional visuals in the entire film. That field, that wall, and that tree, they gave us one of the most satisfying endings in cinema. Even in its absence, the oak tree continues to inspire. And just like Andy said, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things. Fact 7. To understand what solitary confinement really feels like, Tim Robbins didn't just imagine it, he actually experienced it. Before filming, Robbins requested to be locked in a solitary cell inside the real Ohio State Reformatory. Not for long, just an hour or two, but it left a lasting impact. He described the silence as overwhelming and the space as oppressive. Even after a short time, he could feel how it messed with your sense of time and place. That experience gave him a deeper understanding of what Andy Dufresne went through. It helped him portray those moments with realism and subtle emotion. Robbins also studied prison routines to get into character. He wanted his every move to reflect a man who had spent years behind bars. That kind of dedication is rare, and it shows. When Andy comes out of solitary in the film, looking pale and hollow, you believe every second of it. Robbins also filled Andy's cell with little props and notes. He wanted it to feel lived in, like Andy really spent decades there. Director Frank Darabont praised Robbins for his commitment. Robbins didn't just memorize lines. He inhabited the role. His performance was quiet but powerful. It wasn't flashy, but it stuck with you. And part of that power came from moments like this, where he went beyond the script. Few actors go to such lengths to find the emotional truth of a role. Robbins did. And in doing so, he helped make Shawshank unforgettable. Fact 8. Morgan Freeman's narration is one of the most iconic elements of the Shawshank Redemption. His voice adds warmth, wisdom, and weight to every scene. But here's the surprising part. It wasn't recorded in a high-end studio. It was done inside a makeshift booth in a production trailer. The space was lined with blankets and foam to absorb sound. It was far from glamorous. Freeman recorded the narration before filming even began. That helped set the tone for the entire shoot. Cast and crew members would often listen to his voice to get into the right emotional headspace. The first day of recording took 9 straight hours. By the end, Freeman's voice was nearly gone. He even joked that his paycheck should have been bigger. The raw conditions meant background noise sometimes slipped in. Footsteps, trucks, even crew chatter had to be removed in editing. But that roughness gave the narration a human touch. It felt personal, like Red was telling his story just to you. Freeman carefully balanced emotion and restraint. Too much energy, and it felt forced. Too little, and the message lost its power. What he delivered was perfect. That calm voice became a symbol of patience, friendship, and survival. It's now considered one of the greatest narrations in film history, and to think, it all came from inside a trailer. Fact 9. That rooftop scene where the prisoners drink beer in the sun, it's one of the few joyful moments in the entire film, but filming it was an absolute nightmare. The cast and crew shot it in the middle of an Ohio summer. The temperature soared past 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The actors were dressed in heavy wool uniforms, soaking up the heat. The black tar they used wasn't real, but it was still sticky and uncomfortable. The sweat you see on their faces, that's real sweat. Several crew members needed breaks due to heat exhaustion. Some were even treated on site. The scene took multiple days to film, and yet you'd never know it from watching the final cut. The mood on screen is relaxed and almost serene. It's the moment where Andy earns the trust of the other inmates. It's a quiet victory, just a man helping others feel human again. Director Frank Darabont said it was one of the hardest scenes to shoot, but also one of the most important. It showed that even in prison, moments of dignity and joy still exist. That day, the cast bonded like never before. The suffering under the sun created something magical, and the payoff is one of the most iconic scenes in movie history. Sometimes, pain behind the scenes creates beauty in front of the camera. Fact 10. It's almost unbelievable, but The Shawshank Redemption didn't win a single Oscar, not one. In 1995, it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and more. But it lost across the board. That year, Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction dominated the Oscars. Shawshank was the quiet contender, beloved by critics but overlooked by voters. Many thought it was too slow or too subtle. It didn't have the flash of other big films that year, but what it did have was staying power. Over the years, it grew in popularity through home video and cable TV. Audiences discovered it slowly but deeply. It became one of the most rewatched and beloved movies of all time. Today, it ranks #1 on IMDb's top 250 films list. That's ahead of The Godfather and The Dark Knight. Its legacy has completely outgrown its awards history. Even without an Oscar, Shawshank changed lives. It's proof that great storytelling always finds its audience. The film may have lost the battle, but it won the war. And in the end, that's what really matters. Bonus fact. That final moment, where Red walks along the beach and sees Andy again, is one of the most emotional scenes in movie history. But believe it or not, it almost didn't exist. In Frank Darabont's original script, the movie ended with Red on the bus heading south. The last line would have been his voiceover. "I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope." Fade to black. That was the plan. It would have left Andy and Red's reunion up to the viewer's imagination. But test audiences had other ideas. They loved the movie, but they needed closure. They needed to see that handshake, that friendship, that redemption. So Darabont went back and filmed the beach reunion scene, quickly and quietly. It was shot in the U.S. Virgin Islands, not Mexico, and it gave viewers exactly what they needed. That moment, when Andy looks up and Red walks toward him, brings everything full circle. It's a reward after 2 hours of pain and hope. Today, it's one of the most loved endings in cinema history, and it almost didn't happen. Sometimes listening to your audience makes all the difference. That beach scene didn't just complete the story, it made it unforgettable.